Okay, well, welcome everybody to September, to the first Birders Night presentation of the Victoria Natural History Society for this season. And tonight we're going to talk about eBird and Merlin, two apps from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology that have changed birding, I think we can safely say, in the 21st century. We're going to explore eBird a little bit. And in fact, that's probably where most of what we're going to be doing today is looking at eBird on the computer, showing you how to enter information very briefly, having a look at eBird mobile, and then Merlin bird identification. I could probably talk for at least 8 to 12 hours on these topics, maybe longer. And we're not doing that tonight. So I don't know how long this will last. It will depend a lot on how the technology works and also on how many questions you might have. But we're going to at least touch on all of these topics. The first thing about exploring eBird is that there is information that is available to everyone, and there is information that is available to registered users. Information available in terms of everyone allows even people who haven't signed up for eBird to explore regions and hotspots, look at species, look at photos and sounds, look at their news, particularly on science and bird status and trends. However, if you are a registered user, even if you never ever submit an eBird report, you can have access to other things such as detailed species maps. And if you want to, you can create lists that eBird will track for you. Birds that you need to see or want to see, checklists, give you access to eBird courses. And something new this spring was the creation of trip reports, where you can combine multiple lists from one day or multiple lists from a number of days together to see your overall report. I would strongly recommend that everybody get a Cornell Lab account. They will send you some emails asking you for support, but as best I can tell, I don't think they are selling names. I'm not getting a lot of other solicitations that have come through there as far as I can tell. And when you get your first request for something from Cornell, if you don't want to get those emails, you can unsubscribe and you shouldn't get any more. The one thing I do want to tell you is that when you choose a username, that is going to be your username forever. You can hide your personal names, but your username is it. So it may be something that you think is really funny at the moment, but if it's something that you might not want an employer or your grandchildren to see, don't use something that you wouldn't want other people to see, because you will have it forever unless you want to create a new account and manually move everything that you've put on eBird over. So I'm going to go to a new share here and go to eBird so that we can have a look at it. Let's see if I can get this right. Hang on. Okay, I think you should see something there that we'll be getting to a little bit later. So from a browser, the easiest way to get to eBird is to go to ebird.ca or ebird.org. And I'm just going to go to ebird.org to start with. And here you should have some information. First of all, you can see my name, including my username, which is Motmot, in the upper right-hand corner here. And because I am logged in, I will be able to see a variety of different features on eBird. But you don't have to be logged in. If I sign out here, you can still see an awful lot. Let's have a look at their opening page for people who aren't signed in. This gives you information about the application itself, the website itself, and also about things that you might be interested in terms of news. eBird.org is the site for the world eBird, and so you will find a lot of things in here that may not be of particular interest to you. Sometimes the information can be quite dated and like I say, not necessarily relevant. If I go to eBird.ca instead, I am using what they call a portal, and this will give me more Canada related information. It's managed by Birds Canada, and some of it, as you can see here, overlaps directly. In fact, a lot of it does here, but I think that's because I'm not logged in. So I'm going to sign in just so you can see the difference that it might make. Okay, first of all, my information shows up. My number of birds I've seen in Canada, checklists, etc., shows up there. And I get a little bit of a different view on the news. And I can start to see things like the top regions in Canada for species. British Columbia at the moment for the current month is the top with 323 species reported. And if you click on any of these blue links, you can get more information. So British Columbia's 323 species are right here. We won't go through all 323 of them. This website just has such incredible information on it, so much information that you could spend months poking around in here and I think find something new practically every day. Photos that have been submitted will show up. You can scroll through a bunch of them. Audio files that people have submitted. So these are recent submissions. I don't know how they choose the ones that are here, but they have some kind of an algorithm. So your submissions may show up here as well. And then we also have rarities that are being reported in Canada. And when you see the rarities, notice that some of them have these little warning signs. These means that they were reported, but they haven't yet been reviewed by an eBird reviewer, and so have not been technically confirmed. They will show unconfirmed rarities because they know that some people will want to go and look for them, especially if they see the picture and they're satisfied that they are what they are, and they don't want to wait for a very busy eBird volunteer reviewer to get around to looking at the photos. So you will see unconfirmed reports. If they don't have the little warning sign, that means that a reviewer has had a look at them and has confirmed them. Okay, I'm just going to zip back up to the top here. You'll notice that we have a number of different headings that we can go to. Anytime that you're lost and want to get back to the beginning, just click on the eBird or eBird Canada link, and it will take you right back to this page. And when you do, you usually get a different picture. Well, this time I didn't, but usually you do. So let's have a quick look at about eBird and the news, because I want to show you a video that eBird has produced about their app. Let's start right here and make sure that we've got sound.
Every day, millions of people around the world enjoy watching birds and recording their sightings.
What if there were a way to take all of these observations, yours, ours, everyone's, and put them all in one place?
If we could do this, we would fundamentally transform not just birding, but science and conservation.
From this idea emerged eBird. Put simply, eBird is a way for anyone around the world to store their birding observations, their photos, their sound recordings, and make them available to educators, scientists, and birders. It's incredibly easy to use, and it's incredibly powerful. All you do is let us know where you went birding, when, how far you traveled, and what you saw. It's powerful because hundreds of thousands of people all around the world are doing it, and it's growing. eBird already safeguards 500 million sightings, information that allows all of us to understand the movements and needs of birds at global scales. eBird maintains your lists for you and shares them with other birders from around the world. By sharing, it's now possible for anyone, anywhere, to find your target birds and the best birding hotspots any time of the year. Before eBird, there was no way to comprehensively understand population-level movements of many species. By combining your sightings with remote-sensed habitat data from NASA, we're able to generate species distribution models that provide an unparalleled view of where and when birds are in the landscape. Scientists and students all over the world are now able to use eBird datasets for their research at a variety of spatial scales. These observations help inform better conservation strategies, opening the door to the future of bird conservation. And this is just the beginning. With the help of millions of people who come to eBird each year, we are creating a free, open access system that is easy to use, fun, and rewarding. Rewarding for birders, for scientists, for conservationists, and ultimately the birds themselves. Go to eBird.org or download eBird Mobile to get started, all for free.
By joining eBird, you're joining a global team of people that share your passion for birds. Be a part of it.
Okay, so let me get back here. Great. You can also check out the news tab, which will give you information on upcoming events. And you can go back in time and see earlier news that you might find interesting as well. I think a lot of you will find the science around eBird quite fascinating. This is one of the largest crowdsourced databases in the world and is growing in leaps and bounds every day. That video talked about 500 million records. I think they're over 1 billion records now. That was produced 5 years ago. And just the number of reports coming in is just massive. And as a result, they're able to do a lot of really interesting things with the data, including the status and trends of birds, for instance. They have some really great animations about migration and also about abundance and how they come up with the range maps. You know, we have our range maps in our books, but they're static. They don't really tell us how birds move. You have things about how where they are in the summer and where they are in the winter, but you don't really get an opportunity to see how they move around. So here's an example for the barn swallow, how you can see as the year progresses, how birds move around from one place to another around the world. And this is done with the eBird data that is actually provided, but also through the algorithms that were presented and some of the habitat data that was available through other sources. Okay. Going back to the top, of course, if we want to have an eBird account and put our data in, the My eBird is a really useful thing. This is where eBird will actually keep track of how you're doing compared to earlier years. So for instance, this year I'm at 248 species, which is above my last couple of years. But for September, I'm only at 111 species, which is below what I've had in the last couple of years. It shows you your recent trips, and you can also check all sorts of things. Like I have 436 species with photos, but only 30 species with audio. So, you know, maybe I should focus a little bit more on getting some bird recordings done. I'm not going to go through all of these elements because otherwise we would be here for 8 hours, but an area that is really great to just poke around in and explore. And you can change things by asking, like here we've got the world, but if I wanted to say, let's look at British Columbia instead, it is important to spell it correctly. Then I can see how I'm doing this year compared to other years in BC. I'm exactly the same as where I was last year at this time, apparently, in BC, but again, not so good for September. Many other things that you can get and have stored here. I also find that I tend to put my best photos on eBird. So when I want to go back and look at photos that I've taken, not all of them are my best photos, but my best photos do end up here as well. So I can see what pictures I've taken, whether they were just evidence shots like this brown thrasher picture or something that I really felt good about. You know, like there are some here that I really like maybe my common yellow throat picture, maybe not quite as sharp as it ought to be. That one's pretty cool though. So it's a great place to have your photos that you might want to look at from time to time for your birds. If you are not on eBird though, you are able to explore a lot of things. And the first thing that I suggest that people explore is the area that they live in. So most of you are in the capital region in BC. Well, let's go to British Columbia again, because I can show you this. Some of us don't know what county means for BC. For the most part, it means regional districts. More specifically, regional districts that were in existence when eBird was set up. So you'll see it says we have 28 counties. BC doesn't really refer to counties, but if you look at them, you will see that they are, in fact, our regional districts. Unless you happen to live in the Comox-Strathcona area, which is now 2 regional districts, Comox and Strathcona. So by looking at this list, you can see what you might find your area under, or an area that you're going to go visit. And then I know when I look at these, I sort of go, oh, I don't know where those regional districts are for some of them. So it's a great way to sort of start to figure out what areas of the province you might want to go visit. If you go back to, if I go back to my eBird, one of the things I can look at is my profile. And on my profile, I can look at British Columbia. And it will give me a map of the regional districts that I have reported birds from, and also a list, an idea of the abundance, and a lot of the areas that I still need to visit. And this map is great to figure out, like if you were going up here, knowing what regional district you would be in as you visit around the province. Okay, we're going to go back to explore. And I'm going to, instead of putting in British Columbia, I'm going to put in a capital for the the Capital Regional District in Victoria. Notice Capital Territory comes up. There's a lot of other capitals. The one you want is British Columbia. If you put Victoria in there, you're not going to find our Victoria. You have to go with the regional districts first. Okay, so the overview of this page is pretty awesome. It tells us that 402 species have been reported on eBird for the capital region. Starting with the last seen is how this has been organized. So the most recently reported birds are here. The most recently uploaded pictures are over here. So people are finding horned larks, and Hammond's flycatcher and other cool birds. If you want to actually see the checklist, you can click on the date of the checklist. So let's find one here. We can do this through recent visits too. So here we have someone named Wild Birder. Don't know who that is, but they saw 3 birds today. And if we click on the list, it was some mallards, a belted kingfisher, and some white-crowned sparrows at Victoria Harbour. So you can review other people's lists if you like to do that. And I know there's a lot of people that really do. We can look and see who's getting the big lists today. Let's pop down here for recent visits. These are pretty small lists, really. If we click more recent visits. Oh, there we have all sorts of them. You may see your own name popping up here. And yeah, it looks like it wasn't a very birdy day today, but Carla went to Esquimalt Lagoon and got 26 species. So if we look at her list, we can see what was up at Esquimalt Lagoon today, including some rarities that she saw, like this golden plover. Not sure that's it, but horned lark, Lapland longspur. I think Loren found those. So Esquimalt Lagoon looks like a pretty good place to go birding right now. I'm going to go back another level here. Other things that you can see here are the top eBirders by species or by checklists. We have some highly ranked folks in the room today, including Mary, who's up there at 340 species. The top hotspots for the area. Rocky Point is restricted, so you can't go there, but you can see Esquimalt Lagoon and Victoria Golf Course is now restricted as well. Some other good areas. So this is especially handy if you're going to a different location. Like if I was going, for instance, to Comox, I can change this to Comox Strathcona, because I don't know that area as well, and say, well, where are the best spots to go birding? And when I scroll down here to the hot spots, we can see that Oyster Bay, Tyee Spit, the Courtney Air Park, these are good spots to go out and go birding if you're in a new area. So eBird can really help out when you're trying to figure out where to go if you don't know the area. One of the things that I think is the best thing eBird ever did was the illustrated checklist. What that does is it gives you all the birds. In this case, we're in Comox Strathcona, 327 species listed on eBird. And not only can we see what they were, they are presented in taxonomic order, we can see when you're likely to see them. So this time of year, it's possible to see snow geese, and some pictures and some sound recordings. Ross's goose, not really likely. The last time one was seen, 17th of May, 2003, and it looks like only in May anyway. So not a likely choice for the end of September. But you can go through these lists and get a good idea of what is likely to be seen this time of year in the location that you're going to go birding. And these illustrated checklists show up for hotspots as well as for regions. Notice down here that we have cameras and little waveforms, and this, or sound icon here, this will take you to more pictures of that same species taken in that area. So we have lots of wood duck photos, no wood duck recordings for Comox. And you can see that they're saying, hey, if you've got a recording, add it to your eBird list and contribute here, right? So here's a Eurasian widgeon. We have one sound recording. Sounds quite different than an American widgeon. So these are great, and they're great, I think, regardless of where you are, but especially if you're going traveling, looking at an illustrated checklist is good. The other thing that I use them for is when I want to be sort of, well, something different, something that I would like to do. I can say, okay, let's say I want to look at Beckwith Park, which is a local park here, and also somewhere else apparently. I can now look at the details of Beckwith Park, and I can look at the illustrated checklist and see that there are 53 species that they still need photos for. So I could go out for a day in Beckwith Park and see whether or not I might be able to find these birds and get some photos. The red line indicates where we are currently in the calendar. And so the first one is a Canada goose. Now it's, you see that there's lots of Canada geese in Beckwith Park, but most people ignore them and don't bother to take a photo. So I can actually add to the eBird library by getting a picture of a Canada goose in Beckwith Park, and my odds would be pretty good this time of year. Other species, not quite so likely, but it's really quite amazing when you get down to the list, how many very common birds may not have photos on the eBird database for a particular hotspot. This is a great project to undertake too. If you have a hotspot in your area, finding what is still needed for that park or location can be a great challenge for a year, for instance, to try and get as many photos for that library as you can for perhaps a local hotspot near you. But yeah, it's not all the hard ones that are missing on eBird, right? Red-winged blackbird, northern flicker. You can see that some birds that you could really expect to find in the park, someone could go out tomorrow and probably get some photos. Most at Beckwith, it looks like it's pretty well done though, that there aren't a lot of common ones. There's some places that I've looked at where it's things like juncos and robins that no one's bothered to take a picture of. Let's say you want to look at the photos and sounds. You can go straight to Explore and search on the photos and sounds. Is anybody going anywhere? We can look for, oh, you are going to Saskatchewan, Loren. So I can say, okay, let's look at what is happening in Saskatchewan. So we'll just put
Saskatoon area.
Okay, so let's try Saskatoon then. I don't know if that's there we go. It is a county there. And we can also filter by date. So we can say, okay, let's just show me what's in Saskatoon in October, because that's what I'm going. And so now you'll get the photos from Saskatoon from all the previous Octobers. This is a great way to learn birds because, at least in my opinion, because a lot of people submit some not very good photos. And I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes I don't get very good looks. So being able to see not just the beauty shots, but actually some pictures with birds partially hidden or maybe a little blurry or just not in prime condition can actually help you start to recognize the birds that you might see in the area. And you can make a little game of this by hiding the name and trying to identify these birds as you go through. This person put up a lot of pictures of their junco. They were pretty happy about that bird. A lot of pictures of their junco. Okay.
Try Last Mountain Lake.
Okay. Anyway, here's some whooping cranes. This is what you're hoping for. And
Yeah.
look, there's one from Mike McGrenery. He went and found this on Road 670. And so this also gives you some really good details of where you might find birds that you're looking for. So anyway, going through the photos and sounds can be very helpful as well. So if we wanted to change that location, Last Mountain. Looks like they don't have a hotspot for Last Mountain.
Okay, Last Mountain or Mountain Lake. We will
Yeah.
visit Last Mountain Lake.
Yeah, so it's not a hot spot.
Okay.
And so it's not finding that. Oh, sorry, I was looking at species name. Wait a minute. Let's get it in the right spot name here. There should be a Last Mountain. There we go. Last Mountain Lake. There are actually several hot spots there, but if we pick that particular one, and we are still in October, then these are birds that were seen in that area at that time, in previous Octobers. There's not a lot of them that they've uploaded photos, but it is a great way to explore places that you're going to be going to. Look, they got a horned lark there too. Okay, what else can we explore? We can explore bar charts. And you can actually do this from your county as well. So I'm actually going to go back because I find this a little easier. If I go back to Capital, the right one, and go to the bar chart here, this gives me the bar chart for all the species in Victoria over time. And I can change the dates. So I can say, I just want to look at ones I might see in October, or just the ones that have been seen in the last 5 years. But what's nice about this particular view is that it also shows you exactly where the birds were seen. So if we were looking for Ross's goose, for instance, we can see here that these are the locations that Ross's goose were seen. And you can also see the number of them, right? And who saw them. So here at Panama Flats, there was only one. There are pictures, there are notes, and clicking on the date will give you the list and give you the information that the people had at that time. So it's all intertwined. It's pretty cool how it's all linked together that way. Okay, any questions at this point? Is everybody still there?
Yes, this is Don Kramer.
Hi, Don.
Hi. So if I wanted to see, say, pelicans or something like that, if I wanted to see who'd been seeing pelicans in the Capital Region District and where, what
Sure.
would be the simplest procedure to look at a focused on a species like that?
Yes, so I would, in fact, use the bar chart. And you can use your standard controls on your computer. So just Control F here to get to pelicans. So I have the white pelicans and the brown pelicans. This time of year, it's going to be more likely brown pelicans. So let's have a peek at the brown pelicans. If we click on this little map icon, what you'll see here is, this is a good choice. The red icons indicate that they have been seen in the last 30 days. And so you can say year round all year, but if you really want to know, if you're looking for a pelican, you want to know who's seen them this year. So you just want this year's pelicans. So you can set the date range, and that reduces the number of spots. You can use this magnifier to reduce the range of the map, and you probably want to look at the most recent ones. Making point, there apparently was one all as recently as September 4th, but not later than that here. Off of Chatham Island, someone saw one on September 5th. Out at Rocky Point, someone saw one today. So yeah, so one was seen off Rocky Point. So there's obviously at least still one in the area, but it's been a while. If you click on one of the other, I actually had some over there on Race Rocks. Apparently I have not uploaded my list that had 26 of them on it yet, but they have been seen around the area quite a bit this year. This is more than usual. If I was to change the year to let's say 2020, very few sightings that year. So this gives you who saw it, when they saw it, where they saw it, and if you want to see what else they saw or see the pictures they took. This is Courtney Cameron's, and she had quite a long list. And apparently it was pretty foggy that day, but pelicans are pretty easy to figure out. Any other question? Anyone have
Great, thank you very much.
An eBird question that I might be able to show you how to do it? Okay, let me just move along then, and we'll go next. Let me get me back to my, oh, I'm just gonna look at the questions here. Okay, we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. We hope. And well, I had this problem earlier today too. It won't let me now swap this one. Here, let me just quit the share. We'll start again. Come on. There we go. Okay. So next we'll have a look at eBird Mobile. The nice thing about eBird Mobile, it's on your phone or on your tablet, and you can enter information right away, right then and there. You can also enter information on the computer. Actually, I'm going to go back just to show you that. One moment, please. Well, that was not the one I meant to give you. I have like 17 things open here to try and integrate all of this, and apparently I'm not doing it as efficiently as I might like. Okay, that's the one I wanted. Okay, so here you can submit data, and it will ask you to choose from locations or find a location on a map. So if you've gone birding, you can actually click on here and put capital region in. It will give you a map, and you can pick the spot where you are birding. Then as you go through this, so if I pick this and put in capital, I can pick a spot. We'll say here, boat ramp launch in Mill Bay. Then it will ask me when I did it. So I can pick my date. Doesn't have to be today. I'm just going to say I did an incidental list here. So I don't have to put in this stuff. Oops. Nope. And then put in the numbers of the birds that I saw. So you can enter it on the computer that way if you want to do it that way, but eBird Mobile provides a way for you to actually do it in the field at the time. That wasn't what was supposed to happen there. Let me just, okay, good. eBird mobile. Moving on. So that's what's really great, because eBird has the ability to do it live. And I'm going to show you another eBird video. Hopefully this one will come through clearly, and make sure I've got us optimized for video. We do. Good.
With eBird Mobile, birding has never been easier. This free mobile app works anywhere in the world, helping you quickly enter checklists while keeping track of your exact birding route, letting you just enjoy the birds. When you first install the app, you'll need to download a pack of information on what birds are expected in your region. Bird packs let you get a precise list of birds for your area regardless of your internet connection. The app will suggest the best pack based on where you are, and you can download other packs through settings at any time. Now you're ready to start birding. Typically, you'll be entering a checklist in real time, so the app knows the date and time you're starting. I want to record my track, so I'll leave that on. Tracking is a great feature that allows eBird to fill in where you're birding, how far you travel, and how long you're birding for. It keeps track so you don't have to. All right, you're all set. Now click Start Checklist. When you start a checklist, eBird uses your current GPS location and your bird packs to provide a list of expected species that are likely to be in that area at that time of year. You'll fill in this checklist as you go. Once you've found a bird you know, by sight or sound, the fastest way to add it is to type right here in the quick entry bar. Let's start with 2 mallards out on the pond. Type the number of birds, 2, and the species, mallard. Then select the species from the checklist, and you're all set. It's that easy. Let's enter a few more sightings the same way. There's 5 Canada geese foraging in the grass. Sounds like there's a red-tailed hawk calling nearby. And there's an osprey eating a fish. And a great blue heron flying overhead. You can see all the birds you've already tallied by switching to the checked view. This is particularly helpful for adding more sightings to a species. For example, you see 3 more mallards. Tap the number 3 times and you're all set. You'll notice some birds have these icons next to their names. These show whether a bird is infrequently reported or unreported for that region and time of year. By tapping a species name, you can make changes to your tally or add comments about the bird's field marks, its behavior, the habitat you saw it in, or anything else you find interesting. This is especially important for those rare and unusual sightings. You can see where you've been by clicking here to review your track. When you're finished birding, tap Stop. If you have an active track, eBird will ask you if you're done birding. Tap Stop Track to confirm. Now it's time to review your checklist. The first thing you'll need to do is add your location. The best way to do this is to use the map. It's important to choose a location that accurately represents where you were birding. You can either choose an appropriate existing location or create a new location by tapping on the map. In this case, you are birding at Sapsucker Woods, so choose that location. Next is info about your birding outing. This is what makes eBird tracking great. Tracking has already defined your checklist type based on whether you are moving or stationary. Tracking also fills in the duration and distance traveled. You can change your checklist type and edit the other fields if you need to. Before you can submit, eBird asks if you're submitting a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify. Complete checklists are eBird's way of knowing you've identified and reported all of the birds you saw or heard to the best of your ability. It's not possible to detect every single bird. Nobody can do that. As long as you've listed all of the species you could identify, then check yes. You can also enter comments about your birding experience. You can document the weather, other animals you saw, or any other fun memories. Last, but not least, you can review the species you reported. When you're ready, click Submit.
Congratulations, you're an eBirder. You're now part of the largest birding community in the world.
Okay, so what is really cool about eBird Mobile is that it does record all of these things automatically for you, and you can add birds easily on the go. Now, I'm going to tell you, before eBird, I was not really a person that kept notes or lists when I birded. And when eBird came around, I said, well, until they put it on my phone, I'm not going to do it. And so then they put it on my phone, and I'm not someone who eBirds every time. You don't have to eBird every time you go out birding. Sometimes you do just want to go out and watch the birds, and that's fine. But being able to be a part of such an important database is also pretty cool. And so I do tend to eBird most of the time if I've gone out specifically to go birding. Not always if I've just gone for a walk or something like that. But you know, sometimes yes. I guess that's something that is important to say, is that you don't have to be a fanatic about it. I also found a lot of people said, well, if you're putting the stuff into eBird on your phone, then you're not paying attention to the birds. And I would say that once you get familiar with the app, it really doesn't take any longer than putting it in a notebook. And a lot of people were fine with putting their birds in a notebook. So that's a personal choice, whether you want to contribute or not. Lots of details, lots more information that I can provide you, but not in the time that we have allotted today. So now I'm going to try something really tricky and see if I can actually show you my eBird app on my phone. We'll see how this works. Okay. Oh, wait. I'm going to ask if one of you wouldn't mind, could you tell me how that video was? Because I have a second computer running here and I thought it came through kind of blurry. Are you seeing that as well, or was that just me?
I thought the last one was fine.
Okay, good. Maybe it's just me. That's great. Okay. This app over here, please.
Yeah, it looked good from my point of view too, Ann.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, this is a new experiment here, trying a new way of showing you my phone, and we'll see if it will work. Come on, move out of the way. Okay, I can't make it the whole screen. If I make it bigger, it goes to the other side, but you should be seeing my eBird app on my phone right now. So on the bottom of the main menu, you can see something that says Explore. And if you have an eBird account, it will allow you to look at what is being seen around the area from your phone really quite easily and quickly. So this is showing, I have the settings that it's showing me the last 7 days within a defined range. It says 164 species have been seen within the last 7 days. And the way I've got it set up, it will tell me how many of those birds I don't have on an eBird list for this year for this region. And you can see I have 14 targets. If I click on the targets, then it tells me what they are. And you can see that little target off to the right, that will tell me where they are. So if I wanted to know where the lesser yellowlegs was seen, it will come up and show me that it was at Bowker. And because of the range, I'm also getting the San Juan Islands. So that's not going to help me out much. But if I wanted to go and try and find that lesser yellowlegs, it would be down at the Bowker Creek entry. And was only seen, only one of them 5 days ago. So that's a bit of a long shot at this point, but it's cool that it will tell you, so maybe I would decide I don't want to go for that one. Maybe I should go and look for the horned lark, last seen today. And it looks like there were horned larks being seen in a lot of different places, including Martindale Flats, Panama Flats, Sydney Spit, at Esquimalt Lagoon. They had 2 today. So this gives you an idea of where you might want to actually go out birding. You can change the settings so that it's looking at a smaller area or a shorter time period. Lots of personalization available on eBird. If you have submitted your lists on your eBird app on your phone, you can actually get a list of all the ones you'll notice not submitted and submitted. So there's ones that I submitted. I apparently have a backlog of over 50 lists that I have to still submit. So I guess I've got some work to do there. But it is kind of nice. And you can also, like if I wanted to look at one of these lists that I put in here and discovered, oh, I missed a bird, I can edit it from the phone, or I can go to ebird.org. There are some things that you can't do on your phone. If you submitted your list and forgot to share it with one of your birding buddies, you do have to go back to ebird.org to do that. But you can go there from your phone, which makes it quite convenient. Any questions about eBird Mobile? Okay.
Yes, I have one in. What
Okay.
about those? They just briefly mentioned in the advertising video, the little squares that come after that
Right.
for rare birds that aren't seen in the area. Because I noticed sometimes those come up. They come up even for non-species. If you put red-breasted / common merganser, sometimes that'll come up as a rare bird and it wants a justification for it.
So that's a really good point, Dawn. So there's 2 different levels here. Those little circles, the half-filled yellow circle and the red circle, those are just kind of that's not a very common bird around here kind of thing. Take another look at it, make sure that it is what you think it is, but you don't have to explain yourself on that. On the other hand, sometimes things will come up with a little box with an R in it, and that will require you to put something in explaining yourself. Many good points can be made about that. But your question about why is a common / red-breasted merganser coming up rare, that means that the filter wasn't set appropriately by the reviewer. And you can put anything in there for that, right? Just say, wasn't sure which. It's like anything like that would be just fine. And when the eBird reviewers look at the queue and they see that that's coming up as a rare species, hopefully they've got access to the filters and can change that so that it doesn't come up that way. You'll also find sometimes things will come up rare that are not necessarily rare, but are often confused with other birds. So for instance, in Victoria, in the capital region, put in a herring gull and I think it will come up as rare, because herring gulls are uncommon here. And if it doesn't come up rare with one, it'll certainly come up with rare with 2, right? 2 herring gulls at any place in Victoria would be an unusual sighting. And so the reviewers need you to explain how you determined it was a herring gull. Hopefully you have a photo. But if not, we want as detailed a description as you can provide of what you saw or heard that will help. So if you're writing for the eBird reviewer, try to give the information that you saw or heard. It's not helpful for you to say identified by Merlin or by Dawn. It's like if you're birding with somebody else. It isn't helpful to say for people to say things, which they sometimes do, ran across the trail in front of me, because that really doesn't help us identify the bird or feel confident that you properly identified the bird. while including bird behavior is good, it should be in conjunction with what you actually saw. You know, a small black bird with long orange bill running across the trail in front of me is way more helpful than just running across the trail in front of me. You know, so give us some information that will help us identify the bird. If you're not sure you've given enough information, ask yourself, if someone had provided that text to you, would you be able to identify the bird? If not, then you probably haven't written enough, right? So when it comes up as a rare bird, and it doesn't seem to be just an error, like the when you put a spot in there, you know, you put bird spot and it comes up as rare, you know, that you don't have to get specific about. But if you are identifying something that is really unusual for the area, please give as much information as you can, or a video or photo or sound recording. Those are always really helpful. I will tell you, the island is a very busy place for rarities reported, and a lot of them are gulls, and a lot of them are shorebirds. And the eBird, there's about 6 eBird reviewers on the island, and most of us are not gull or shorebird experts. But I've sat in on group meetings that we've done to try and bring the queue down, and people who are experts on birds, like gulls and shorebirds, can look at some of those photos and still not be able to say confidently that they have been identified correctly. That doesn't mean they haven't been. They can't say for sure they haven't been either. But sometimes IDing birds is really hard. Have you noticed that?
Yes. Okay, but in a case where, for example, the brown thrasher that was on just off Lockside Drive for a long time, sometimes there, rather than say, you know, sort of medium-sized brown bird, blah, blah, you just say continuing or first seen by or something, and it just refers to others who have first given the identification, and it's not necessary to put in all the details each time, I guess.
Well, you know, I will tell you, Cornell would love if you did. Some eBirders will not confirm, or eBird reviewers will not confirm if you just put continuing. The ones here will, especially if it's a well-seen bird and you're within the window of it, right? So for instance, if you had been there on day 3 of the brown thrasher and put continuing, it's going to get accepted. If you put it in now, you might need to give more information because it hasn't been seen for a while.
Right.
So,
okay.
So you have to think about the scenario. Now, if you are writing your description for your fellow birders, they don't care what it looks like, right? They want to know where the heck it is. And so if you are especially an early person on finding the bird, or someone who finds it in an unusual location, it's often really helpful to your friends to get specific location information, and maybe even specific time information. Because if you started your checklist at 8 in the morning and you didn't see it till 11, that may be important to know, because if they look at your checklist and say, well, it was seen at 8, that would be incorrect information. So, you know, bird seen, let's say, well, I know Lauren talked to me about this the other day, about the Lapland longspurs. She didn't go into a great deal of description about these birds. She wanted to get other people on it. And so she said, you know, it's about 100 meters from the restrooms on the inside of the lagoon. So that really did help people find it. So sometimes information on where the bird was is really appreciated by other birders. A lot of the times that is the more information you can provide, the better for that. But for the reviewers, you want to provide the description of the bird and its behavior so that they can make a call on whether to confirm it or not. And do remember this, just because the eBird reviewer does not confirm it or can't confirm it, doesn't mean you didn't see it, right? They will acknowledge that they can't say a positive yes, but that doesn't mean necessarily a no, right? You'll get an email in most cases explaining that they need more information, or that the photos just weren't good enough for them to nail an ID. But you may have gotten a great look at it in your scope, right? And you know 100% it was what you saw. don't feel that they're not believing you when they don't confirm all of your sightings. Sometimes they do believe you, but they also have to say, is there enough evidence here for us to actually hit confirmed? Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great.
I
Thank
have
you.
some more questions about details, but I'll see how this goes and I may
Okay.
ask them later.
Okay, so I do want to talk about Merlin a little bit because that's new and cool. So Merlin started out as a way of putting a bird description in and getting some recommended or possible sightings. Then it advanced to photo ID, and now it has sound ID and can store recordings. For Merlin, I'm going to start out again with a couple of videos, I hope.
Merlin is a free app that uses 5 simple questions to identify the birds you find, providing real-time bird ID guidance right in the palm of your hand. This is such a cool app, you'll just have to see it in action. Let's say we're out birding and we see a mysterious small bird perched on a fence. Time to put Merlin to work. Start Bird ID and Merlin asks, where did you see the bird? You can choose your current location, choose a position on a map, or simply type in a place or postal code. For this, I'm going to type in Ithaca, New York. Next question, when did you see the bird? Today's date will automatically appear first, so July 23rd works for me. Question 3, what size was the bird? Okay, Merlin uses a ruler based on some common types of birds. Was the bird sparrow-sized or smaller? Goose-sized or larger? Or somewhere in between? Sometimes this is hard, especially if the bird moves too quickly, but give it your best guess. I think our bird is slightly larger than a sparrow and smaller than a robin, so I'll choose between sparrow and robin. On to number 4. What were the main colors? Again, this may be difficult depending on the bird and the time of day you see it, but try to choose up to 3 of the most obvious colors you saw. I saw some blue on its back, orange on the throat, and some buffy brown on the belly. Finally, what was the bird doing when you saw it? Eating at a feeder? Swimming? No. And it wasn't on the ground. Aha! On a fence or wire. And that's it. These deceptively simple questions are at the core of all bird ID. Next, we'll get our results. Merlin provides a list of birds you are most likely to see based on your description and eBird data for that location and time of year. And here's our list. Hey, that's it. It's a barn swallow. You can check out photos of the species, listen to songs and calls, and browse the rest of the list to see other similar birds. Once you've identified your bird, be sure to help Merlin learn by choosing This is my bird. If you're able to get a photo of the bird you see, you can also use the incredible Merlin Photo ID feature. Select an image from your phone or snap a new one. Zoom in so the bird fills the frame, then click Next. Confirm the location and the date, and hit Identify. Like magic, Merlin analyzes the photo and gives you a list of most likely species. Yep, that's a barn swallow. Thanks to cutting-edge computer vision technology, Merlin Photo ID is more than 90% accurate for thousands of species of birds. Isn't that amazing?
So that is pretty cool. Now we have the ability to also use Merlin for sound, and this has been a game changer for an awful lot of people. Let's see if this one will work.
Merlin's powered by the eBird community, so all those folks all over the world submitting their sightings to eBird makes it possible for us to build Merlin. And with all the recordings in the archive, we can build this amazing feature through collaboration with computer scientists that helps identify bird songs automatically. The challenge of identifying birds that are singing has been a problem the community has been working towards for many years, and recently computer vision technology has made it possible to convert that sound into an image and then train the computers to identify the bird in that, essentially that image.
We knew that we could convert audio to spectrograms, to a visual representation, and then use a computer vision toolkit to take the problem and try and solve it there. So as opposed to really treating this like an audio problem, we actually treated it as a photo ID problem. Machine learning is great. It does have some really nice success stories, but you really need to involve the people that can get you the training data in order to improve these things and benchmark them. That's one of the things that the Lab of O, like, it's probably what makes it pretty unique and special, is that it has both of those pieces kind of in spades. And so the technology that powers Merlin Photo ID is cool. It's actually all the data that Cornell already had. That was the value proposition of the whole project.
Merlin is a free app. We really wanted to make birds accessible to people because that moment when you learn the name of a bird is magical. You start to understand where that bird has traveled, what it needs to survive. It's our hope that we can continue to provide the habitats that birds need to survive in this world side by side with humans in intact ecosystems.
Yeah, so what is really cool about this is, as was explained, they are not actually comparing sounds, they are comparing images. And that's what's really bumped the ability of artificial intelligence to identify bird sound, because sound itself is quite fuzzy. It's, if you think about the apps like Shazam that could identify music, they would they had the catalog of recorded songs. So if you had a famous song, say being sung by someone who had recorded it, Happy Birthday, it would pick that out. But if you sang Happy Birthday, it wouldn't be able to pick that out because it didn't have it in its files. So now they're using vision to actually figure out what the bird sounds are. The next video is on how you actually use it.
Merlin can also be used to identify birds by sound. Click on the Sound ID button to get started. Then click on the green microphone icon to begin recording the birds nearby. The display at the top of the screen will show the sounds being recorded. Merlin will give you suggestions for the bird in real time. And if more than one bird is singing, Merlin will attempt to identify them all. Click on the Stop button to end the recording. Once the recording has stopped, click on any bird in the list and the playhead will jump to the position in the recording when that bird begins singing. Click on the play button to hear the recording. Then click on the down arrow next to that bird to hear a recording of the suggested species to compare with what you're hearing and confirm the ID. Identifying birds by sound is tricky. Merlin uses thousands of recordings to learn the vocalizations of each bird species. Watch as suggestions appear and note the pitch and pattern of each bird's song. Some birds sound very similar, and the best way to learn is to be able to see the bird that is singing. Merlin will automatically save your recordings onto your device. Each recording is labeled by date and time. To rename the recording, click on the pencil icon, click on Rename, then type in a new name with the keyboard. If you do not want to save the recording, click on the trash can to delete it. Files are stored in the app in a location called My Sound Recordings. Click on any of the names in the list to access the recording. If Merlin can't identify your bird, try getting closer to the bird without disturbing it and try recording again. If Merlin still doesn't have possible matches, it could be that the species you are trying to record is not supported in Merlin. In this case, you can browse the likely species for your area and explore nearby birds. Click on any bird shown to read the identification help text. Listen to provided recordings. and view the map of that species range to see if there are any good matches. If you think you have a good recording but Merlin still can't find a match, you can click on the Report No Matches button. Your response will be added to the database to help improve Merlin's accuracy. Sound ID currently supports more than 450 birds in the US and Canada and will be expanding around the world as our collection of recordings shared by eBird users to the Macaulay Library continues to grow.
Okay. Okay, so I think something that she said very quickly and might be overlooked is that bird identification by either by photo or by sound is hard. And Merlin is good, but not great, right? So Merlin makes a lot of mistakes, and it's important to remember that. Fewer mistakes now than a year ago. A year ago, Merlin could not identify most Buick's wrens, and now it seems to be doing a good job of that, partly because people are submitting more Buick wrens songs. And so if you think you've got, like if Merlin tells you it's something unusual, make sure you feel that you, in fact, have identified it. Someone sent me a picture the other day saying, Merlin says this is a northern mockingbird. And guess what? It was a northern mockingbird, right? But she wanted to make sure that Merlin got it right before she reported it. And that was the really good thing to do. I've put the sound recording on out at Rocky Point, and it's identified at least half a dozen birds that I know were not there. So don't get too excited if Merlin turns up a rare bird for you, because it might just be getting it wrong. But if it says that it heard a black-capped chickadee, that's a good hint to you to have a closer look at the chickadees and see if one of them might be a black-capped chickadee. So yeah, Merlin is not perfect. It is not confirmation of a sighting. It's a suggestion. It's as if you went out with another birding friend and they said, I think that sounded like a Western bluebird. You still have to confirm it. You as the human have to confirm it. So I'm going to go and try and get back to my phone just to see if I can share one other feature of Merlin with you. Okay, and you can see that at the very bottom here, it says Explore Birds. Explore Birds is a field guide. If you don't want to purchase a field guide, say like Sibley's for your phone.
We're not seeing your thing.
Oh, you're not. Thank you for telling me that. That's my fault. Got it all queued up and then forgot to hit share. I think this will do it. Can you see it now? Oh, there it is. I see it. Okay. Let's get that out of the way, make it a little easier to see. Okay, so it's a field guide. I'm going to go back so you can see where I was. There. So at the bottom it says Explore Birds, and this is a basic field guide, and it's a pretty good one. So you can search for your birds. So if you wanted to have a look at a horned lark, for instance, you had been hearing that people were seeing horned larks. There we go. We can click on horned lark. It gives you the description of horned larks. It gives you multiple photos of horned larks, so you know what you're looking for. As was shown in the video, you can play the sounds. You can look at the map, see when horned larks should be around. And like the other field guides that are available these days, if you do know your 4-letter bird codes, you can put your codes in and it will take you to the bird more quickly than if you have to type the whole name in. You can also look at birds by groups. So you can ask to look at wrens, for instance, and it will give you all the wrens. So really handy field guide to have on your phone. Doesn't weigh nearly as much as a regular field guide. and has a lot of information that you might want in the field without having to lug a book around. Okay, so we're going to go back to this one. And, you know, we'll ask you, do you want more? If so, you can do an eBird Essentials course through Cornell and eBird. It's free and it doesn't take a long time. I think it typically takes less than an hour and gives you more information on the eBird app itself. Rocky Point Bird Observatory is also offering a 3-session next step course beginning this Saturday evening, which I will be leading, to look at a lot of the things that we've touched on here in more detail and to work with you specifically on eBird or Merlin questions that you have yourself. So I can show you how to do something that you're trying to do on eBird or on Merlin. If you're an RPBO member, $15 and $30 for non-members. And you can get to that through the online presentations link at rpbo.org. With that, I will go and say, any questions? Anybody have any questions about eBird or Merlin that I may be able to answer for you?
It's Diane.
Hi, Diane.
I got Merlin online and it was free, as they said.
Yes.
But I also got directed to something that wanted me to pay for it, a subscription, Merlin. Do you know anything about that?
Merlin is completely free, and anything that is asking you to pay for a subscription to it is someone trying to take advantage of the application. And so just do not pay for it.
No, I didn't. I just wondered.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
And I'll just check the chat here, see. Okay, I don't think I have any questions in the chat room.
So it's Don again. I don't want to dominate but if no one else is asking, have you noticed anything in particular about Merlin with gulls? So I have only just started using it and I found it very helpful for not for songs, since most birds aren't singing now, but for the alarm calls, because I sometimes have trouble between Pacific wrens and song sparrows. I don't quite get the pitch right, and maybe a fox sparrow, and it was just so perfect, and I was able to confirm it sort of every time I finally got a visual on them, and it was just really helpful. So that felt like a real game changer for me. Yeah. And sometimes when I had it open, it was also referring to kinglets and brown creepers, which are above my current hearing range. And so, but that's more difficult. If I can't see them, I can't be sure they weren't there. But the question I had more was that if I've had it open sometimes when you have the kind of chorus of gulls all calling together, like when they're at food or when they're at a nesting site. And sometimes it seems to add in herring gulls and western gulls in with them. And someone else was telling me about that. And I said, gee, I really don't think there's sort of herring gulls and western gulls on the roof of the adjacent apartment. Correct. And finally, I was at Turkey Head, and someone started throwing some food down, and the gulls were all calling. I could see they were all glaucous wing gulls that were calling, and it was still giving me western and herring. But I think it must be that with some species that have really complicated calls and highly varied calls, it must have more difficulty separating them out.
Absolutely. The birds that are easy to identify, it can identify well. The birds that are hard to identify, it has the same trouble as we have. Maybe a few more resources to use, but also it's looking at segments. And sometimes there are segments that will be very similar between different species. Remember, it's doing this visually. And and so this is where it will kick out things that you go, yeah, not so sure about that, buddy. Like and why it's so important for you to do just what you did. Okay, it says there's a herring or a western in here. I better go through this flock and see if I find any black-tipped gulls, wing-tipped gulls, to see if any of them are potentially westerns or herrings. But use your own understanding of what's out there to confirm or dismiss, as opposed to just blindly accepting that Merlin's got it right. Merlin still gets a lot of them wrong.
Mhm.
Better
Yeah,
all the time, though.
I think, and maybe gulls are a particular, in my limited experience so far, gulls are a particularly challenging group for it.
They are, for sure. And I can tell you, I was at a Western field ornithologist meeting where they have a quiz called Stump the Chumps, and they get people like John Dunn and other people that are considered national experts play them a gull call, and they struggle too, right? So I think people have not spent a lot of time learning the nuances of gull calls. So and recording them and sending them into the Macaulay Library. So they don't have as big a database as a lot of other more popular birds. But over time, that's going to change. And as people submit their recordings, it will be possible to get that better on Merlin as well.
So
any other?
Can you give feedback that says you got it wrong?
They don't have an easy way for you doing that, and I wish they did as well. But you can provide feedback. I think there's a feedback link in the file menu, like in the little 3-line menu. But yeah, I have wanted to submit some you got it wrong ones as well, but it's not as easy as the yes, this is my bird option.
I also have a question about the data acquisition from eBird. Is there, for most groups, they have an SP category, so that would be species. So if you don't know what kind of grebe it was, you can put grebe SP or cormorant SP. And they briefly discussed that question of, all the birds you were able to identify. But is there, maybe at a distance, there's a flock of gulls at a feeding frenzy and you can't really see what kind they are. Is it worth just saying, 200 gull SP, or is that not of as much use as just putting the ones that are closer to shore and that you can actually see and identify?
That actually is of use, and it is something that they encourage people to do. And the reason for that is that it in combination with other reports, gives a much better sense of what is really there. So I find myself sometimes going, okay, well, I looked through that flock of 200 birds, and I know I saw at least 50 glaucous wing gulls, and I know I saw 3 Bonaparte's gulls, and I wasn't really paying attention to the other gulls. So I could put the 53 birds that I felt comfortable with in my list, or I can put that there were 200 gulls, 50 of which were glaucous wing, 3 of which were Bonaparte's gulls, and the rest were gull spa, so that they know that it was a big flock, not just 53 birds. So there's no expectation you're going to be able to identify every bird, but yes, I think the data is valuable to put in, particularly the large flocks of spa. If you missed one crow, that's not a big deal, right? But if you saw the stream of crows going overhead and there were like 2,500 of them, those big flock numbers, I think, are good. And you know what, there might have been a raven in amongst all those crows, but it's still fine that you put 2,500 crows.
But they have categories for like bird SP and passerine SP. Presumably those don't really add very much. That you just saw a couple of small sparrow-like things flying over. And
do you know what I find those useful for, Dawn? Is determining your own abilities. Like at Rocky Point Bird Observatory, in order to do census, we ask that people are able to identify 75% of the birds they see or hear. And and we ask on our application form, what percentage of the birds can you identify? And I think people often underestimate how well they're doing. And so I encourage people that want to know how well they're doing to use the bird SPA or passer and SPA codes, because then at the end of the day, if they actually saw 100 birds and they were actually able to identify 85% of them, 85 of the birds, and only had 15 bird SPA, then they have a better picture of how well they're doing there, right? So I agree with you. I don't think it adds a lot to the data pool for bird or passer and SPA. Again, unless it's huge, right? So if you saw a migrating flock of 200 passerines, but you had no idea what they were, I think that would be worth putting in there.
I see. Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
But the little onesies, twosies, not so much. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. I hope that you were able to pick up something valuable for this. And as I say, we will do 3 more sessions through Rocky Point. This is a bit of an experiment for us. It's one of the, well, it is the first Zoom talk other than our banding workshop that we're looking at charging a small fee for. We have to figure out ways to generate revenue to allow us to continue our operations and do some exciting things that we're planning on doing in the future. And I think that perhaps courses might be a way to do that. And so this is just a little foray into that. So I hope you all learned something today, even those of you who've been using eBird and Merlin for a while. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Anne. This was awesome.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.